See. All right. We're back. And this week we're talking about the swamp. So, and I'm referring to that section somewhere, I don't know, roughly around the midpoint or somewhere in Act Two, where the writing becomes very, very difficult. Um, it can be discouraging. There can be just kind of some doldrums there where it doesn't seem like you're getting any forward momentum. So yeah, that's what I mean by the swamp. Do you have your own term for it?
Um, no, just the middle. It is like a swamp. That's a good term for
I always think about the bog of eternal despair from Pilgrim's Progress. Um, well, yeah, so I mean, first off, I guess what do you think it is? Like I keep trying to wrap when you're in the moment, it's just kind of like, this doesn't feel fun. But I'm curious, like what do you think contributes to it? I don't know if it has a single causative piece to it.
it. Yeah,
Um,
I don't think there's like a kind of a single reason for it either. I think that like when we're young and we're kind of learning and first trying, we get really good at doing beginnings
yeah.
you start things over and over and over and over. You get pretty good at how to start things. Um, you have less experience kind of farther in, you know.
Yeah, I
Um,
think yeah, I mean the hook is engaging and it's exciting and there's a lot of pieces moving and there's a lot of excitement. Um and the transition to act 2 is exciting generally too, like where the adventure begins. It's kind of beginning part 2, you know?
yeah,
Um
there's a big turn that kind of launches
hmm.
into the middle.
Yeah, I there's a part of me that thinks that some of it has something to do with the narrative elements of storytelling, but then also like I remember reading this quote from Stephen King where he was saying that he tries to get his novels finished in like under like 60 days. Um, because if he takes longer than 60 days, he'll just lose interest, which is kind of crazy to me because I've had projects take a lot longer than 60 days and I still was, interested in them. But clearly we're different people. And I think part of it, so I think there's a narrative piece to it. I think there's maybe a psychological piece to it. But I think one of the things that happens for me is like I'm holding it's like you're balancing all these plates, like you've got all these, plates that you're trying to keep in the air. And then more and more kind of like life stuff sets in. Because like if we're talking about anywhere from 2, 3 months, 6 months on a writing project, like if you like neglect all else for like 6 months, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna be pretty serious. Um, like I remember one time like being really focused on a writing project and only to realize that like it was summer in Austin and all of these rats had taken over this storage room in my house and like the house was just shy of being overrun by rats and I was like so focused on writing I didn't notice this very real problem that was going on. So I wonder if that's got a piece to it as well, like just the way that life kind of starts to be more and more demanding.
Yeah, well, it'll do that.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
it'll.
I don't have a whole lot to say about that. Like life happens and you do have to kind of like take a break and deal with it when it does.
Yeah, no, that's really true. And I mean,
Um,
we can.
I think a lot of it is that the kind of the things that need to happen in the middle in order for the story to stay engaging are pretty nuanced and
Mhm.
they're not always clear kind of in the conception of the story. Like the conception of a story is kind of a theme, a character, a beginning, like a premise, kind of a beginning situation that they're in, and then maybe like the ending, how it's going to end, the climax, you know? And the in between is like, oh, I'll figure that out as I go. Well, now it's time to figure it out.
I like that. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think, I mean, in terms of like how to navigate it, for me, having an outline is it's very important. Even if I veer considerably from the outline, I just know that that's kind of where I need to get back to, or that's like the direction of travel. Um, I mean, what else have you found that helps you get through that middle point or that swamp?
Yeah, I think just like having kind of a skeletal outline.
Mm,
I'm really kind of finicky about outlines. Like if I if I don't outline enough, then I get really bogged down and my story turns into a mess.
mm,
If I have too much outline, then it's like like I have kind of exercised whatever I felt like I needed to write in the outline. Like I've already told this story. I told it in bullet points, but I told it. And kind of the energy, the need to tell the story evaporates. It
mm,
feels told already, you know.
mm,
So my sweet spot is kind of a pretty sparse outline. And the way
mm,
I get through the middle is you've got like a handful of kind of plot points and
mm,
you're just driving from point A to point B, and then once you get to point B, you point yourself at point C.
mm. That's good. Yeah, I my process is I have a pretty detailed outline. But I hear what you're saying about giving yourself room to breathe. I mean, there's a part of me, if I'm honest, like I feel nervous even just talking about the swamp. Like acknowledging it is kind of difficult for me. And I think some of it is like I struggle some with depression, and it feels a lot like that. It's that level of like malaise, you know what I mean? Of like, I can't go on, I'll go on. And so even just acknowledging it is a struggle for me. And then if you were to ask me like, well, what are you going to do about it? It's like, I don't know. Definitely don't want to go back on medicine. Like I think about smoking cigarettes. For me, like one thing that really helps me, and I teach this to my boys, is it's good to be bored. Like it's really good to like set the phone down and go for me to like go for a really long run or a long walk, or to go somewhere where I'm just going to be bored. Like there's nothing going on and it's just me and my thoughts and like a long stretch of road. And that and in those moments, that's like when I find little, if I show up, if I consistently show up, then maybe some inspiration will shine through, you know. So that's become a significant part of it for me, is like maintaining personal fitness, not like because I'm some kind of health nut, but more because I've struggled with depression in the past. And I know that if my body gets healthy, my if my body gets unhealthy, then my brain's getting unhealthy. And there's really nothing much more unhealthy than just like sitting in a chair for 4 hours a day, you know.
Yeah, well, that's usually what I do. So maybe I should try your method because what I do is sit there.
You're just like, I showed up and I'm gonna
Yeah, I
sit
do. I
here.
take that seriously. Like I showed up. I'm here. I'm not going to do anything else for this time. Either this book is getting written or like nothing is going to happen.
Do
Those
you
are the
power down
options.
your cell phone, or what do you do with distraction type stuff?
Um, what do I do with it? I don't like the phone is not that tempting to me. Um, but other thing, I'm more prone actually like on my laptop to just kind of click over and start looking at different things, like on my actual computer, you know.
Yeah, go down some
The
rabbit
phone,
trail
like
with the
the
computer.
phone is not that I don't know. I don't have the phone thing the way some people do. I can, sometimes I forget where my phone is. Sometimes I have to go looking for my phone because it has gone dead and I can't like call it and or find it, you know. The phone's not that big of a deal to me. But it's not to
Mm,
say that the internet isn't, you know, like
right.
that's my thing. Like I have two machines. I have two laptops. One of them is for writing and one of them is for other things.
So you
Because when I was doing
compartmentalize that.
both on one machine, it would.
Yeah. Yeah, I think compartmentalization is really good. So what we're talking about here is like what are those things that help us focus? And what's ironic for me is like things that are meant to help me focus wind up being one of my biggest Achilles heels. Like I love reminders on my phone and I love day planners. And if I'm not careful, especially with the phone reminders, that becomes a huge distraction. Like I feel a great satisfaction hitting the button that the reminder's completed on my phone. Um, and so my phone's full of reminders, and I will literally sit and stare at reminders all day if I'm not careful.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like the whole reason you have these stupid things on your phone is so you won't sit there and think about them all day long, and you won't forget them. You know. Um, but yeah, I when I'm smart, I'll just leave my phone upstairs and just come downstairs and write.
yeah. That's probably like if the phone is a thing for you, then just like leave it somewhere else when it's time to write. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I would say. I don't know. I've tried different things with like schedule. Like right now, what I do is I come home from work and
Mm,
the next 2 hours, at least 2 to 4 hours, 2 hours guaranteed, and then I can sneak 4 hours if it's kind of a placid, smooth day, at home. I can steal an extra couple hours if everything kind of goes smoothly. But I get for sure 2 hours as soon as I get home. Like I come home, I change my clothes, I go into this room where I am right now. I lock the door. That happens at about 4:30, and then no one is gonna no one is allowed to bother me until 6 o'clock. I
yeah.
mean, if something happened, it's not
Right.
like I can't be bothered, but this is
Right.
my time. And then if I just screw off with that time, that's a come to Jesus moment for me to have with myself. Like that's
Yeah.
the time I get. How I use it is,
Well, I'll be
and
honest with you,
honestly,
man.
that has a lot to do with like the I also noticed that when energy is high and momentum is going and
Yeah.
things feel like they're happening, I use that time really well. It's when you're less confident. It's when you're like, I don't know, like, am I making the right choice decisions with this story? Am I telling the right story with the material that I have? Have I made mistakes? Have I gone off on tangents that there's actually a more interesting story somewhere else? And just this questioning self-talk. This isn't even the negative self-talk yet. This is just
Hmm.
the questioning self-talk. Um, will kind of wind you down, you know, and then the negative self-talk sets in. This is
Hmm.
crap. There are better things that you could be doing with your life. You know, there are more important things to do. Why are you're being selfish? Why are you doing this? Nobody cares.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's two sides of the same coin is the way that I started to think about it is that like if you have this kind of creative bend in you, um, you're basically doing one of two things. You're either actively making something, you're actively tearing stuff down. So I think it's that that I don't want to be overly critical of the inner critic. You know what I mean? Because I think that it's there to protect me. It's trying to, like it may be saying really negative stuff, but it's really it's it's just kind of trying to prepare me for all the rejection that I know is out there, like the really real rejection that's out there.
Yeah, you
Um,
kind of have to be able to suss out like what it's saying. Like one of my favorite kind of writers talking about writing quotes is a Hemingway quote, and he said the
hmm,
best thing that a writer can, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, I don't remember it word for word, but it was like the best kind of thing that a writer can have is a built-in foolproof bullshit detector.
mhm.
And he means it in context of the larger thing that he's saying. He means it about that inner critic. Like when is the inner critic
Hmm.
noticing that my kind of I need to work up more on my chop, like I'm not up to snuff, something could be better, this could be better. Readers aren't going to let you get away with that.
Yeah.
Kind of like good critical feedback. And when is it just being a bully and telling you
Hmm.
mean things about yourself? Because it does
Yeah.
both.
Learn to
And
critique
so he says you
the
need a
critic.
bullshit
Yeah.
detector. You need to
Hmm.
be able to tell the difference between those things.
I thought you were gonna say that kind of Hemingway quote where it's like if anyone wants to be a writer, they should go out and hang themselves. And if the rope breaks and they live, at least they've got a good story to tell.
Yeah.
Because it feels that way sometimes. Um, well, that's it for tonight. Um, so we'll get this one up. I mean, we're really winding down. We're coming up on um the go time.
Yeah, we're halfway through the month.
Yeah.
So
So we'll get together and we'll whittle through. There's a lot of stuff that I feel like we could still touch on in terms of preparation. Um, but yeah, having some kind of game plan in place for the swamp, I feel like is important to just know yourself and to know what things you need to do when you're not in a healthy place mentally. Um, but yeah, I'll text with you. We'll figure out what we want to talk about next. Because I mean, yeah, we don't have. I think we've maybe got 4 more of these, or 5 more of these, or maybe less, before it's like go time for writing.
mm,
So we're coming up on that time. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous still, but excited. So good night.
yeah, good night.